Yes, welcome inside the News 12 Sports Rush. I'm Greg Thompson in for Pete Ruff. The high school football season wrapping up this past weekend with two Hudson Valley teams playing in the state championship games. We welcome in Andrew Rappaport. Andrew, it's not a lot of times that a state championship game can get overshadowed, but that's sort of what happened here with New Rochelle.
Yeah, you know, the whole nonsense with this coach controversy for weeks now. You kind of hoped he would get his job back. You kind of hoped he would coach a state championship game. They met they met last week, and they decided not to bring him back. And for the fans, for the players, I know it stinks. You know, for us, it stinks because we like to see him out there. But the game has to go on, and they had to play anyway.
Right, it's funny. Back when he was suspended on November 13th, it seemed like they might sort of be able to resolve this pretty quickly. They thought, you know, maybe he wouldn't even miss a game. Well, he missed one game. And then he missed a second game. And sort of the public outcry and the frustration over everything just sort of kept building and building.
I think the root of the whole problem was that nobody ever got the full reason why. If there would have been one definitive, this is what he did and we're keeping him out for the rest of the season, maybe people could have got over it. But you string the guy along, you string the fans along, you string the players along, and take it, you know, day by day, week by week, and it's like, what's going on around here?
Right. Whatever happens at the end of this, when we do get the full story, if nothing else, the optics of this have been handled pretty terribly. And I understand that there are, you know, regulations and things you can say and can't say, but it still hasn't been a good look, and certainly public sentiment has not been with the district, and it could end up being that everything was right for them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It could be right for the district, and if it is, then they handled it right internally. But to everybody else, they handled it wrong. Because if no one knows anything and everyone is left out to dry, then everyone's going to think that the district's at fault.
Right. It's been little bits and pieces coming out. We found out this past week that, you know, they're looking into an incident from the 1980s. A student may be accusing him, they just say unlawful content or conduct, but then that was too long ago to really do anything about it. Right. He meets with district officials this past Monday. Nothing really comes out of that, it seems. He did then end up eventually releasing a statement to sort of deal with some of that. We'll take a look at that statement now. It said in part, although I appreciate the kind words and support from many in New Rochelle, I ask that you refrain from any continued public demonstrations and focus on our team who's attempting to do something historic for the community on Sunday. I do not want this ongoing matter to serve as a distraction for our outstanding football team and coaches at all, whom I'm extremely proud of. And that's sort of his take, sort of trying to shift the focus off of him and onto the team, which he's tried to do.
Yeah,
it hasn't necessarily worked.
He's doing it the right way because he's a classy guy, but
right. We see them still chanting his name after all of these, but if all of that wasn't enough, then with about 24 hours before the game time, they moved the state title game from Sunday to Saturday because of that weather forecast. Luckily, though, Pete Ruff has a great travel agent. He was able to move his travel plans, adjust, still get up there. We are joined by Pete Ruff now. Pete, you were at that game at the Stomping Grounds. How was Syracuse, Pete?
It was good. But what was crazy, guys, is Friday I'm at the practice. New Rochelle was practicing in a dome in Mount Vernon, and I was talking to a couple players, and then the coach comes running over to me, and I'm like, uh-oh, they're going to throw me out. He goes, the state just called us, and they're moving the game to Saturday night, tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. And so it was like, wow, these guys were supposed to travel to Syracuse on Saturday and stay overnight and then play Sunday. So instead, they got up early Saturday morning, got a bus at 8 a.m. to play a football game 12 hours later.
And they've got a much longer commute too.
Yeah, probably 4 hours on a bus at least, and that's being conservative. And they got up there. Meanwhile, McQuaid Jesuit was about maybe an hour, a little more than an hour away, so it wasn't a big deal. They couldn't play the game earlier because Syracuse University had a football game. So these guys went up there, and they went to a high school during the afternoon, worked out a little bit, threw the ball around, and then got to the Carrier Dome about 7 o'clock.
When you were at the practice, when they found out, was everyone shocked that they just did it then?
The coaches were. I don't think the players were.
Right.
They wanted to play. They would have played in 20 minutes.
Right.
But yeah, so they were all prepared. Everything, the game plan was already there.
Sure.
But just think about it. You have to get up early. So they got the bus at 8, so they're probably up at least by 7,
right.
6:30 in the morning. So they have to go all the way up there. And as we know, it turned out pretty good for the Huguenots.
Show us how they did it.
They right. Well, we'll take you to the highlights of the Carrier Dome, and a great crowd. Crowd came up Saturday night. Check them out. They were all excited to see the Huguenots play, and they would have plenty to cheer about. It was scoreless up until the second quarter. Gary Phillips, the third, goes in from 5 yards out. It was 7-0 at the half. Third quarter, they get rolling. Tariq Benjamin throws it out to Anthony Paul Jr., and the senior is going to break some ankles. Goes 23 yards to the end zone. Huguenots could smell a title. Now, it's New Rochelle, so I know you're going to get a Jesse Parson highlight. Well, here you go, folks. The senior breaks outside and races 49 yards. He would follow that up with a 60-yard score, finishing with 180 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Now, New Rochelle dominated McQuaid Jesuit on both sides of the ball. The defense kept the Knights out of the end zone. Senior lineman Darren Cabo was a man on a mission. He was in on 13 tackles and led the defense with 4 sacks. The senior had a career day and was named Most Valuable Player. New Rochelle wins it for Coach Lou DiRienzo. The final was 28-0. It was the program's 3rd state championship.
Oh yeah, I was very motivated. I knew we had to win. Losing was not an option. We had to go 13-0. Nobody else has done it. Not Ray Rice and them back in 2003, not 2012, not last year with Jordan Forrest, Kyrie Vance, Matt Coughlin, us. We had to pull this off.
I knew this was the goal, and no matter what goes on around us, we never lost sight of the goal. So we just kept our eyes on the prize and ultimately got the job done.
He did everything. This is all his product and all for him. Everything we did this whole year is for Coach D, 100%.
Just an incredible run by these guys, and I have to tell you, this, believe it or not, was probably the easiest game they had in the state playoffs. You know, the first game against Utica Proctor, it was close until the fourth quarter when they started to pull away. Last week against Shenendehowa, that game was close. They had to come back in the fourth quarter to win. This game, 5 minutes in, I felt, and a lot of the other reporters in the Carrier Dome felt, New Rochelle's going to win this game. They just seemed like that much a better team. And Andrew, I got to bring it up to you, buddy. You've been saying the last 2 weeks that it's New Rochelle and you put them up against an all-star team from the West, and they're probably going to win. Well, you know what? I think you're right, because they just dominated on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I went on the rant last week about playing a private school, and they took them down. But, Pete, we've been talking about this probably since week 2 or 3, that they weren't going to be stopped. So, yeah, I know this game was easier than some of the other playoff games, but they've looked the part of a state champion since week 2 or 3 this season. So it's no surprise, really.
You're right. And, they lost in the state championship last year to Aquinas Institute. So, a lot of the guys that came back, they had a chip on your shoulder for that. Now they lose their longtime head coach, who they treat as like he's a father figure to them. So the chip's even bigger. So it was just, they wanted to win. They wanted to do it for head coach Lou DiRienzo, and they did it. And the best performance was Saturday night at the Carrier Dome by far.
Yeah, Pete, I mean, everyone sort of responds to adversity in different ways. When you look at just the number of things that got piled up against them, and you look at it seems like every year they have a team that should be in the conversation for a state championship. I don't know, was it one thing? What was it about this group that was finally the one that got it done, even with all those things stacked against them?
Well, first of all, on the field, they were the fastest team all year. In Section 1, even when you go upstate, they were faster than any team. And once they got to the outside, you weren't going to catch, especially Jesse Parson. But they were just so fast. And then this comes, and the kids come together. They're united. They're united for their coach. The coaches come together, the assistant coaches. You know what? They come together. And there were 4 or 5 coaches there, including, Ray Rice, as we all know. But they were coaching as one. They were all helping each other out. So really, it was one unit, that whether it was the players or the coaches. And they came together, and they wanted to win for New Rochelle, obviously, the team, Coach DiRienzo, but the community, because the community backed Coach DiRienzo. The teachers union, they wanted to win this for the city, for everybody, so they could celebrate, because the last 3 weeks, there hasn't been much celebrating going on outside the football field.
Certainly one that they'll remember for a few years for more than one reason, Pete. Hang around, because that wasn't the only major thing a local football player did at the Carrier Dome on Saturday. Archbishop Stepinac alum Trill Williams, he is a sophomore at Syracuse University. Overtime against Wake Forest. Wake can win it with a touchdown. Instead, Williams ripping the ball away. The Yonkers native goes 94 yards and seals the win for Cuse. And if that looks familiar, it's because it is.
It does.
Remember Williams' senior year of high school when he was at Iona Prep? They were taking on their rivals, and as Brandy once said to Monica, the ball is mine. Williams rips it away. That was just one of a few signature plays in a high school career, as exciting as any we've seen in this area in a while. I think, Pete, real quickly, just the amazing thing is we saw him make these crazy plays, and he's in college and he's doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, he's just great. He's only a sophomore, like you said. And the fans at Syracuse rushed onto the field. It's been a bad football season up at Syracuse by far. They haven't met their expectations. But to finish the season like that with Trill grabbing the ball and running it the other way, the fans, the students came out. Great way to end a season that has been disappointing. But the kid's awesome, and I bet you someday he's going to play on Sundays.
All right, well, Pete, I think that you're going to play on Sundays one day also. Great catching up with
not
you.
Professional.
Enjoy the snow. And New Rochelle, Andrew, was not the only team playing in a state final for the second year in a row.
Yeah, Cornwall. Let's see the highlights.
That's right. Looking for the back-to-back titles, but doing it without their starting quarterback. Instead, they look to take home this plaque without him. The Green Dragons trying to become the only Section 9 team ever to go back-to-back in football. Down 11 in the second. That's a Mean Woods, pulling them within 14-9. Carthage answers with a touchdown. So Louis Francesi calls his own number again. Just a one-score deficit. Carthage would try to respond. Sophomore Orlando Carthage with the interception. Cornwall would pull it off. Back-to-back state championships for the Green Dragons. Welcome back. Girls high school hockey has been played upstate for a few years now, and starting in 2021, Section 1 is going to join the party with some teams of its own. Now, until then, players are competing locally against each other as clubs, preparing for next year's inaugural season. And our Gino Ganello has more.
From the moment the puck hits the ice to the battle against the boards,
Here we go. Here we go.
they play each period like the guys, just with better hair. Welcome to girls hockey in Westchester and Rockland counties.
As I'm sure you know, there's a lot of girls who need a place to play, and there are, more and more girls teams, but it's still very much a growing sport. So we're just looking to provide girls with that opportunity to play together and kind of united underneath, one geographic area.
Peter to the battle!
Back in January, the Hudson Valley Girls Ice Hockey League held their first ever game. And while it's still growing,
Good job, Anna.
the league has made the girls feel a lot more comfortable.
The girls' high school hockey is just wonderful to play with your girls, no checking, and just another to play with your classmates, another way to play with your teammates.
I'm on another girls' team, and before that girls' team, I played with boys, but I wanted to play with girls because they started checking, and I just thought playing with girls would be a lot better.
While this year the girls will be playing at a club level for another season, next year they get a shot at the real deal, playing in a high school girls hockey league representing Section 1.
It is kind of like a historic thing, being part of the first ever Section 1 teams. It means a chance to compete with other teams, other sections. That's the really exciting part. We will be a varsity sport next year, so that was the goal from the start.
And with that, the girls get another chance to show off their skills.
I'm really excited that not only my teammates but my classmates and everyone in the community could see me finally play, and I could get just a bunch of opportunities because there'll be scouts and it will be a varsity team.
I get more opportunities to play with the level I want to play in and to become a better hockey player.
And that's a goal worth shooting for. In Bear Mountain, Gino Ganello, Sports Rush.
All right, thank you, Gino. Although there's at least a couple guys with flows who might give the girls some competition in the better hair department. Now, the girls' schedule this year includes 4 games between the Rockland and Westchester teams, while the rest of that is still being finalized. Meanwhile, the high school basketball season is actually underway now, tipped off this past week, and no team has more hype surrounding it than Archbishop Stepinac. The Crusaders are nationally ranked thanks to 2 players who are already committed to the elite college programs. And Pete Ruff recently caught up with head coach Pat Massaroni to talk expectations and the pressure that comes with it.
Top 25 in USA Today. That's pretty impressive just before you even tip off.
Yeah, obviously the final poll is what matters, but it's an accomplishment for our school, our program, the staff, and most importantly our players. And I think they've earned that. I think they've earned the respect, not only locally but on a national level. And USA Today is, in the high school sports world, is the cream of the crop. That's the one that, of all the polls, and we're appreciative of some polls have us higher than that, but USA Today being 25th is pretty neat feeling. We also understand that what comes with it and the territory of the target on our back every time we step on the floor. But we have enjoyed it. We will enjoy it through the preseason here, and then as we prepare for game one, we know that those rankings all disappear, and we have to worry about one game at a time, and we want to be there in the end, top 25.
Target on your back, expectations obviously through the roof.
Yeah, returning 9 guys from a team that played in the city championship last year, and then for this program to experience the Federation Championship the year before. So to know what that is like, that's our expectation, to be back in that Catholic League City Championship game at Fordham University. And the expectations are high. We've gone from kind of being the underdog, being in the City Catholic League and sneaking up on teams, and that's no longer the case. We've also, as a collective group, decided and came up with the motto that we're going to get back to where we need to get back to and redeem ourselves. With a city championship is the ultimate goal. And we know the pressure, and we understand the spotlight that is on us. And our guys have done a really good job having an older group, and when your better players are also your leaders, it makes things a lot easier as a coach.
Not many schools, if any, in the Hudson Valley have had a player going to Duke and North Carolina. Mm-hmm. You do, with Adrian, going to be a Blue Devil. RJ's going to be a Tar Heel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Tom Kachowski told me the last time it was done in this area was in Jersey City, which wouldn't be the Hudson Valley, but at Hudson Catholic in 1978. So I don't know if it's ever been done in this area, in the Westchester, Hudson Valley area, in New York, and I'm so happy for both of them and their families, the hard work that they put into it. Obviously, they're successful on the court, but as individuals off the court, unbelievable young men that take pride in themselves, their families, the school, and represent themselves so well.
Any team with the talent that you guys have plays more than just their local schedule.
Yeah.
You have a national schedule. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we're playing a national schedule. We'll play Paul VI down in an event in Delaware. They're ranked number 6 in the country. They have 4 top 100 guys. Their best players actually going to Duke. We'll play the defending state champs from Tennessee, Briarcrest Christian, in the first round of the City of Palms tournament. They were 27-0. They have a top 10 player in AJ's class. And then if we are fortunate enough to win that, we'll play IMG Academy, who in the high school world won the national championship last year, and they're ranked number 2 in the country.
Probably the best atmosphere I saw all of last year.
Yeah.
It's at the county center.
Yeah.
With Iona Prep, and then when you played, against the Gales on the road,
Yeah.
you played at Iona College.
Yeah. Being a rivalry that we are, put on unbelievable displays that night for Westchester basketball, for the state of New York basketball, and the tri-state. To play in front of the county center, 3,000 fans. For a high school game is almost sold out venue, is incredible. And then 1 month later to the T to go down Iona College, the renovations they made, but even before that, 2,500, 2,800 for a high school game, and the atmosphere and the students being involved and the courtside seats and the alumni, it's become not just a game. And we're looking forward to January 3rd and February 1st, the Saturday before the Super Bowl at Iona College.
All right, when we return, we've got a few leftovers from Thanksgiving to bite into. Turkey Bowl action from the oldest rivalry in New York City, dominated by players from the Hudson Valley. Sweet potato stuffing and football when News 12 Sports Rush returns. Welcome back to the Sports Rush, and it was also Thanksgiving this past week, and a couple things that go with Thanksgiving. There's the relatives you pretend to like, there's turkey that you pretend isn't the most overrated meat or poultry on the planet, and there's football. And every year from 1971 to 2012, that meant Archbishop Stepinac and White Plains playing every Thanksgiving morning. But scheduling conflicts with one of the teams making a deep playoff run canceled it a few times. Players who did winter sports couldn't practice both. They played the game in 2016, but then in 2017 they decided to end the rivalry. So that leaves Fordham Prep. They're in the Bronx, but almost all of the team is from Westchester in the Hudson Valley. Their Turkey Bowl series against Xavier dates back to 1882, said to be the oldest rivalry in New York City. And they met again this past year, a ridiculously windy day out on Aviator Field in Brooklyn. Sleepy Hollow's Owen Lafredo in the class of 2020, trying to be the first Fordham Prep senior class since '06 to sweep their 4 years. Andrew does not get off to a good start. Xavier's first play from scrimmage. This is Andrew Scariano on the sideline. He's from Yonkers. They have kids from the area too. Nobody catching him. 60 yards, Xavier builds a 13-0 lead.
And he's got a great first name.
He does. Prep fights back though. Second quarter, Bedford's Jack Anastelli, the pride of Pelham, Christopher Devine. It was Devine and just a 6-point game at the break. Second half, Court Collier under center for Prep. He finds Matthew McKillop, the Edgemont native, making one man miss, then two. The third and fourth finally bring him down to the 2-yard line. McKillop finishes the job on the next play, but it would not be enough to stop your boy, Scariano. Andrew to his friends, 3 touchdowns by himself. Fordham Prep streak comes to an end, 40-14. Traditions end and new ones start on Thanksgiving.
That's all right. I'll still eat turkey next year.
And you'll still have an Andrew to root for.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks a lot. We will see you guys next week.